Hello everyone, this is Paul from SpanishWithPaul.com and welcome to this Monday's Spanish lesson. In this video, I'm going to give your Spanish a real workout by asking you to translate some longer sentences using essential tools that I'll give you from the Preterit past. Now, if all that sounds a bit complicated, don't worry, as always, I'm going to make it nice and easy for you to follow along with. If you haven't been through my 10-part mini course series on YouTube yet, I advise you to do that because it will make all of these upcoming lessons that much easier for you to get through. I've put a link to it in the description box below this video. So all of that is coming up next. If becoming fluent in conversational Spanish is one of your goals for this year, then consider clicking the link above to download my free course books that go along with all of my YouTube lessons. You can also subscribe to my channel to get a brand new Spanish lesson from me every single Monday. So with that out of the way, let's get started. What is I have to in Spanish? Tengo que. Now we can also say I had to. This is where we're diving into the past. In Spanish, this would be tuve que. Notice the strong B sound here. Tuve. Tuve que. This means I had to. What's the verb to wait? Esperar. How would you say I had to wait? Tuve que esperar. The word for, when referring to times, such as minutes, hours, days, months, whatever it may be, is por in Spanish. Por. For example, to say for 3 hours, it would be por 3 horas. How would you say I had to wait for 3 hours? Tuve que esperar por 3 horas. What's the word there in Spanish? Allí. And how do you say yesterday? Ayer. Now translate this. I had to wait there for 3 hours yesterday. Tuve que esperar allí por 3 horas ayer. You could also reverse that and put the word yesterday way up front, saying ayer tuve que esperar allí por 3 horas. Either way will sound natural in Spanish. How do you say this morning? Esta mañana. Now try this. This morning, I had to wait there for 3 hours. Esta mañana tuve que esperar allí por 3 horas. You can also turn this around and say, no tuve que. This means I didn't have to. For example, how would you say I didn't have to wait? No tuve que esperar. To express for a long time or for very long, you would say por mucho tiempo. Literally for much time. Por mucho tiempo. How would you say, I didn't have to wait very long yesterday? No tuve que esperar por mucho tiempo ayer. What's the word for here? Aquí. Now say, I didn't have to wait here for very long. No Tuve que esperar aquí por mucho tiempo. We have to be a little bit careful with the verb esperar. In English, we commonly say, I had to wait for him, or for her, or for them. So right away, you might be tempted to say, tuve que esperar por él. Now, while this is correct in Spanish, and you will hear it from time to time, there's a much more common, more frequently used way of expressing this. The key to understanding it is that the verb esperar in Spanish means to await. So to await someone. So instead of saying, I had to wait for him, in Spanish, the verb esperar is more implying that I had to await him. This means that it's more common to hear I had to wait for him translated as tuve que esperarlo. The word lo is representing him, so I had to await him. Tuve que esperarlo. You can see that in this structure, there's no mention of the word for, por, or para. Let's practice this a little. The pronoun for her is la. So how would you say, I had to wait for her? Tuve que esperarla. The pronoun for them is los. How would you say, I had to wait for them? Tuve que esperarlos. To express for 2 hours would be por 2 horas. How would you say, yesterday, I had to wait for them for 2 hours? Be careful here. Ayer tuve que esperarlos por 2 horas. Literally, yesterday, I had to await them for 2 hours. To express an hour in Spanish is una hora. How would you say, this morning, I had to wait an hour for her? Again, be careful, think it out. Esta mañana tuve que esperarla por una hora. Let's try one more. This morning, I didn't have to wait very long for them. Esta mañana no tuve que esperarlos por mucho tiempo. Once again, literally, we're saying, this morning, I didn't have to await them for very long. Something else that is very useful to have in the preterite past is this idea of I couldn't. In Spanish, this would be no pude. Just 2 syllables, pu and de. And this gives us a nice sounding couple because we have tuve and pude. So once again, I couldn't is no pude. How would you say I couldn't wait? No pude esperar. What about I couldn't wait here very long yesterday? No pude esperar aquí por mucho tiempo ayer. How would you say I couldn't wait for him? No pude esperarlo. I couldn't wait for her. No pude esperarla. This morning, I couldn't wait for her. Esta mañana no pude esperarla. What's the verb to tell? decir. To express to tell you, we take the verb decir and tag on the pronoun of te. Te stands for you. So we get the sound of decirte, to tell you, decirte. How would you say, I couldn't tell you? No pude decirte. What's the word for last night? Anoche. How would you say, I couldn't tell you last night? No pude decirte anoche. Again, if you wanted to put last night way up front, that would also sound completely natural. Anoche no pude decirte. Something we covered in the mini course series was how to say what happened. I wonder if you can remember how to say that. ¿Qué pasó? It's important to stress the end of that, where you see the accent over the o. So, ¿qué pasó? How would you say, I couldn't tell you what happened last night? No pude decirte qué pasó anoche. What's the verb to go out? Salir. Now, how would you say, last night, I couldn't tell you what happened because I had to go out. Pause and just think it out step by step. Anoche no pude decirte qué pasó porque tuve que salir. To express to tell him or to tell her, we're going to use a different pronoun. We're going to stay with decir, the verb to tell, but we'll tag on the pronoun of le. This pronoun, le, means to him or to her. So we get the sound of decirle, to tell him or to tell her. Decirle. How would you say, I couldn't tell her? No pude decirle. The word for the truth in Spanish is la verdad. La verdad. How would you say, I couldn't tell her the truth? No pude decirle la verdad. The word for about, there are a few of them in Spanish, but the one we normally use is sobre. How would you say, I couldn't tell her the truth about what happened yesterday? No pude decirle la verdad sobre qué pasó ayer. You can also choose to say lo que here instead of just que. So, no pude decirle la verdad sobre lo que pasó ayer. It's really just a difference in sound, but no difference in meaning. When you have the word what in the middle of a sentence, you can choose to say que or lo que. Either way is correct. What's the verb to call? Llamar. To express to call you, we take the verb llamar and once again tag on the pronoun of te, meaning you. So the sounds we get is llamarte. How would you say, I had to call you last night? Tuve que llamarte anoche. In a previous lesson, we covered how to say in order to with one word in Spanish. I wonder if you can remember what that was. Para. Let's look at this sentence. I had to call you last night to tell you what happened. Now, this to is implying in order to, meaning I had to call you last night in order to tell you what happened. Now, whenever to implies in order to, even though you won't necessarily say it in English, it's just implied, you're going to throw in the word para in Spanish. So this is the place where you're going to throw in para. Try to translate the sentence. Tuve que llamarte anoche para decirte qué pasó. Just as before, if you want to express to call him or to call her, you're going to use the pronoun of le. So we get the sound of llamarle, llamarle. How would you say, I had to call him this morning to tell him the truth? Remember that this to is implying in order to. Tuve que llamarle esta mañana para decirle la verdad. To express any longer in Spanish is simply más. For example, I couldn't wait any longer would be no pude esperar más. How would you say I couldn't wait for her any longer? No pude esperarla más. I couldn't wait for him any longer. No pude esperarlo más. What about I couldn't wait any longer and I had to call you? No pude esperar más y tuve que llamarte. One more. How would you translate I couldn't wait any longer and I had to call to tell you what happened yesterday? Where I've underlined to is because it's implying in order to tell you. So pause, think it out step by step. You can do it. The answer is no pude esperar más y tuve que llamar para decirte qué pasó ayer. The verb to explain is one we've been through before. I wonder if you can remember what it is. Explicar. How would you say I couldn't explain? No pude explicar. What about I had to explain? Tuve que explicar. I had to explain what happened. Tuve que explicar qué pasó. As always, you can put in lo que pasó if you prefer. The word for boss in Spanish is jefe. Notice the strong H sound here with this combination, jefe. To express to my boss would be a mi jefe. A mi jefe. How would you say, this morning I had to explain to my boss what happened? Esta mañana tuve que explicar a mi jefe qué pasó. My neighbor in Spanish can either be mi vecino or mi vecina. If it's a male neighbor, it will be vecino. If it's a female neighbor, it would be vecina. Let's use it. How would you translate, last night, I couldn't wait any longer, and I had to explain to my neighbor what happened. In this sentence, we're supposing that our neighbor is female. Anoche no pude esperar más y tuve que explicar a mi vecina qué pasó. To express, to explain it, we take the verb explicar and we tag on the pronoun of lo. This lo stands for it. So we get the sound of explicarlo. Explicarlo. How would you say, I couldn't explain it? No pude explicarlo. In a previous lesson, we also used the phrase, the reason why. Can you remember how to say that? El por qué. Simply the why. El por qué. The reason why. How would you say, I couldn't explain it. I couldn't explain the reason why. No pude explicarlo. No pude explicar el por qué. Let's go all the way back to the beginning and to the present tense. How do you say, I have to? Tengo que. If we get rid of que, we're left with tengo. And tengo on its own means I have. So, tengo que, I have to. But just tengo, I have. The word for time in Spanish is tiempo. How would you say, I have time? Tengo tiempo. I don't have time. No tengo tiempo. The word for enough in Spanish is suficiente, literally sufficient. So we have su, fi, si, ente, suficiente. This means enough. How would you say, I don't have enough time? No tengo suficiente tiempo. What about, I can't do it now because I don't have enough time? No puedo hacerlo ahora porque no tengo suficiente tiempo. We can mirror this exact same thing in the past. So what is I had to? Tuve que. If we again get rid of que, we're left with tuve. And on its own, it means I had. How would you say I had time? Tuve tiempo. I didn't have time. No tuve tiempo. We can use both tuve and tuve que in the same sentence. How would you say, I didn't have time, but I had to wait? No tuve tiempo, pero tuve que esperar. How would you say, I didn't have enough time? No tuve suficiente tiempo. What about, I couldn't do it yesterday because I didn't have enough time? No pude hacerlo ayer porque no tuve suficiente tiempo. What's the verb to talk or to speak in Spanish? Hablar. And how do you say with her? Con ella. Now try this. I didn't have enough time to speak with her yesterday. Be careful here because the word to is implying in order to in English. I didn't have enough time in order to speak with her yesterday. So you're going to have to throw in the word para. Now try to translate this. No tuve suficiente tiempo para hablar con ella ayer. How do you say with him? Con él. Now say, I didn't have enough time to speak with him this morning. No tuve suficiente tiempo para hablar con él esta mañana. With them is going to be con ellos. Con ellos. What's the word for today? Hoy. Now say, I didn't have enough time to speak with them today. No tuve suficiente tiempo para hablar con ellos hoy. The word unfortunately is something we've done in a previous lesson, and it's probably one of the longest words in Spanish. It's desafortunadamente. That's a lot of syllables. So we have desafortunadamente. Desafortunadamente. Let's try to use it. How would you say, unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to speak with them this morning. Desafortunadamente, no tuve suficiente tiempo para hablar con ellos esta mañana. Let's try one more. Unfortunately, this morning I didn't have enough time to speak with them about what happened yesterday. Pause and think it out step by step. Here's the answer for you. Desafortunadamente, esta mañana no tuve suficiente tiempo para hablar con ellos sobre qué pasó ayer. If you said sobre lo que pasó, that again is perfectly fine. Let's finish with this one. I couldn't do it. How would you say that? No pude hacerlo. If you're serious about learning Spanish and want to become conversationally fluent, my main course, Spanish with Paul, is live and available for you now. Inside you'll get my complete course, none of which is available on YouTube, and also my personal attention to make sure you achieve conversational fluency in the fastest time possible. In short, if you like my free lessons on YouTube and the results they're giving you, then you'll love what I have for you inside the main course. You can click the link on the screen now to find out all the details. So with that said, I look forward to seeing you again in my next video.